Welcome to English Bookshelf, where every book becomes a mirror and every story helps you rediscover yourself. Your life is quietly asking you a question. Not loudly, not urgently, but patiently. What is the dream you've been ignoring? That question sits at the heart of The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. This is not just a story. It's a mirror held up to anyone who has ever felt a pull towards something more, and then talked themselves out of it. Paulo Coelho wrote The Alchemist as a simple fable. But simplicity is exactly what makes it powerful, because the truths that change our lives are rarely complicated. They're just easy to forget. The story begins with a boy named Santiago. He is a shepherd, not because he lacks ambition, but because he values freedom. He travels with his sheep, sleeps under the open sky, and believes he understands the world, until a dream starts repeating itself. A dream about treasure, a dream about the pyramids of Egypt. At first, Santiago does what most of us do. He ignores it, then he doubts it, then he looks for logic to explain it away. But the dream keeps returning, and slowly, he realizes something unsettling. Some dreams don't come to entertain you. They come to call you. This is where Paulo Coelho introduces one of the book's most important ideas. The idea of a personal legend. Your personal legend is the thing you are meant to do, the life you are meant to live, the version of yourself that feels most true. And the tragedy, Coelho suggests, is not failing to achieve it. The tragedy is never trying. Most people abandon their personal legend very early in life. Not because it's impossible, but because fear sounds practical. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of losing comfort. Fear dresses itself as responsibility. And slowly, dreams are postponed, then forgotten. Santiago doesn't fully understand this yet, but the pull of the dream is stronger than his comfort. So he seeks answers. He meets a mysterious king, a man who seems to know too much. This king tells him something simple and dangerous. When you truly want something, the universe conspires to help you achieve it. At first, this sounds poetic, almost naive. But the king explains further. The universe doesn't make the journey easy. It makes it possible. The help doesn't come as comfort. It comes as challenges, as tests, as moments that force you to choose between fear and faith. And this is where Santiago makes his first real decision. He sells his sheep. He leaves behind what he knows. And he starts his journey. This moment matters more than it seems, because most people wait for certainty before they move. Santiago moves with uncertainty. He doesn't know how the story will end. He only knows he can't ignore the call anymore. And almost immediately, things go wrong. He is robbed, alone, in a foreign land. This is not an accident in the story. It's a lesson. The first steps toward your dream often feel like punishment. You question yourself. You think you made a mistake. You wonder if comfort was the wiser choice. This is where most people turn back. But Santiago doesn't. He works. He learns. He adapts. And slowly, he begins to understand something deeper. The journey is not just taking him somewhere. It is changing him. Paulo Coelho keeps returning to this idea, that the treasure is never just the destination. It's the person you become along the way. As Santiago continues, he meets new people, each one teaching him something without preaching. A crystal merchant who gave up on his dream long ago, not because he failed, but because he was afraid to succeed. This character is one of the most painful mirrors in the book. He shows what happens when you choose comfort over calling. Life becomes predictable, safe, and quietly unfulfilled. The merchant is not unhappy, but he is not alive either. He lives in someday. Someday I'll go. Someday I'll try. Someday that never comes. Santiago sees this future and chooses differently. As the journey continues, the book begins to feel less like a story and more like a conversation with your own heart. Coelho introduces the idea of listening, not to noise, but to signs. The world, he says, is always speaking, through coincidence, through intuition, through moments that feel too meaningful to be random. But only those who are paying attention can hear it. Most of us are too distracted, too rushed, too afraid of being wrong. So we silence intuition with logic and call it maturity. Santiago learns that the heart speaks a language without words. And when you learn to listen, decisions become clearer, not easier, but clearer. The desert becomes a symbol in the story. Wide, empty, unforgiving. It represents uncertainty, the space where you have no guarantees. And yet, the desert teaches Santiago something essential. When you strip life down to its basics, you hear yourself more clearly, away from noise, away from expectations, away from the stories others tell you about who you should be. In the desert, Santiago learns about love, not the kind that binds you, but the kind that strengthens you. Love, in this story, does not ask you to abandon your dream. It asks you to honor it. Because real love understands that fulfillment matters. Then comes the alchemist himself. A quiet figure, confident, unhurried. He doesn't give long speeches. He gives presence. The alchemist teaches Santiago that fear is the greatest obstacle. Not lack of talent, not lack of resources. Fear of losing what you have, for what you might gain. He teaches that every decision has a price. But indecision costs the most. As Santiago nears what he believes is his treasure, the story does something beautiful. It turns inward. He is tested one final time, not by hardship, but by doubt. And this is where the deepest truth of the alchemist is revealed. The treasure is real, but not where you think. Sometimes you have to travel far to realize what was close all along. Sometimes the journey is necessary to teach you how to see. By the end of the story, Santiago understands something profound. The dream was never about gold. It was about alignment, about living honestly, about listening to your heart, about trusting the path even when it doesn't make sense. Paulo Coelho is not telling you to quit your life tomorrow. He is asking you something quieter. What dream did you trade for comfort? What voice did you stop listening to? Because it was inconvenient? The alchemist doesn't shout. It whispers. And that whisper stays with you. Because somewhere deep inside, you already know your personal legend. You've just been waiting for permission to take it seriously. If this story is touching something inside you, if it feels familiar in a way you can't explain, then stay with this journey. There's still more to uncover about fear, faith, and the courage to begin. As Santiago moves forward, something subtle begins to happen. The world starts responding to his attention, not in obvious miracles, but in quiet alignments. A conversation here, a chance meeting there, a moment that feels small, but changes everything. Paulo Coelho is careful here. He never suggests that life becomes easy once you choose your dream. In fact, it becomes harder. But it becomes meaningful. Santiago learns that every step toward a personal legend demands a sacrifice. You give up certainty. You give up approval. You give up the version of yourself that felt safe but incomplete. And in return, you gain awareness. The book keeps returning to one gentle truth. Growth requires attention. The more Santiago listens, the clearer his path becomes. When he stops listening, confusion returns. This mirrors our own lives. We often know what we want, until fear gets louder. Fear of making the wrong choice. Fear of looking foolish. Fear of discovering that the dream is harder than we imagined. So we delay. But delay has a cost. The story introduces people who delayed too long. People who waited for the right time. People who believed tomorrow was guaranteed. They're not villains. They are ordinary. And that is what makes them tragic. They believed safety was the same as happiness. Santiago begins to understand that the universe tests commitment, not to punish, but to strengthen. Each challenge asks a question. How badly do you want this? Will you turn back when it hurts? Will you still trust yourself when nothing makes sense? The alchemist explains that fear appears right before transformation, because the mind wants to protect what it knows, even if what it knows is limiting. This is why the final steps toward a dream often feel the heaviest. Not because you are weak, but because you are close. The story also teaches something unexpected about success. Success is not loud. It doesn't announce itself. Often, it arrives quietly. And only later do you realize everything has changed. By the time Santiago reaches the end of his journey, he is no longer the boy who began it. Not because he learned secrets, but because he learned to trust himself. That is the real transformation. The gold, the treasure, the reward. They are symbols. What truly matters is the courage to begin, and the wisdom gained by continuing. Paulo Coelho closes the story with grace, not drama. He leaves you with a feeling, not a lesson. A feeling that your life is speaking to you, that your dreams are not random, that meaning is not found, it is followed. The Alchemist stays with readers because it doesn't demand belief. It invites reflection. It asks you to remember who you were before the world told you to be realistic. And maybe, just maybe, to listen again. As the journey settles into its final rhythm, Paulo Coelho brings the story back to something simple and deeply human. Meaning is not hidden in distant places. It's revealed through movement. Santiago learns that the universe does not reward intention alone. It responds to action. Dreams don't open doors by themselves. You have to walk toward them, even when the path feels uncertain. This is why the book feels so personal to so many readers. Because at some point, everyone stands at the same crossroads. The place where comfort whispers and courage asks for more. Santiago's greatest lesson is not about alchemy. It's about alignment. When your thoughts, actions, and desires point in the same direction, life feels different. Not easier, but clearer. Obstacles stop feeling like signs to quit. They become signs to learn. The book gently teaches that fear never disappears, but it loses its authority. You stop asking, "What if I fail?" and start asking, "What if I don't try?" That shift changes everything. By the end, Santiago understands that the world does not conspire for you or against you. It responds to who you choose to be. When you listen, when you move, when you trust yourself enough to begin. The Alchemist is not about finding answers. It's about learning to ask the right questions. What matters to me? What am I postponing? What would I do if I trusted myself a little more? These questions don't need loud answers. They need honesty. And honesty, once you allow it, has a way of guiding you forward. That's why this story lasts. Not because it tells you what to do, but because it reminds you of what you already know. If this journey stirred something inside you, if it felt familiar in a quiet way, then this book has done its work. As the story reaches its quiet completion, Paulo Coelho leaves you not with answers, but with a feeling that lingers. A feeling that life is not something to solve. It's something to listen to. By now, Santiago has completed his journey. But the book gently reminds us that the journey was never really about distance. It was about awareness. He returns wiser, calmer, and more present. Not because the world changed, but because he did. This is the final lesson of The Alchemist. You don't find meaning by running away from your life. You find it by engaging with it fully. The world tests you not to break you, but to teach you how deeply you care. Fear, the book suggests, is not an enemy. It's a signal that something important is at stake. And when you learn to walk with fear instead of away from it, you begin to live honestly. Paulo Coelho doesn't romanticize struggle. He respects it. He shows that hardship is not proof that you are on the wrong path. Often, it is proof that you are on a meaningful one. The story ends where it began. But everything feels different now. Because once you've listened to your heart, you can't pretend you didn't hear it. Once you've seen what alignment feels like, settling feels heavier than risk. This is why The Alchemist is read again and again, at different ages, in different seasons of life. Each time, it reveals something new. Not because the book changes, but because you do. And maybe that is the most beautiful truth in it. Your personal legend is not a destination. It's a relationship with yourself, with your values, with a quiet voice that knows when something is right. You don't need to abandon your life to honor it. You just need to stop ignoring it. As this story closes, it leaves you with a simple invitation. Pay attention to what excites you, to what scares you, to what keeps returning to your thoughts. These are not distractions. They are directions. If this journey through The Alchemist felt like a reflection of your own questions, then you weren't just listening. You were remembering. As everything settles, the story leaves behind a quiet truth. Not every lesson arrives as advice. Some arrive as recognition. You recognize parts of yourself in Santiago. The hesitation, the hope, the moments of courage followed by doubt. And that recognition is the real gift of The Alchemist. Paulo Coelho never asks you to believe in magic. He asks you to believe in attention, to notice what keeps returning to your heart, to respect the dreams that refuse to disappear, to understand that longing is not weakness. It's direction. The book gently reminds us that life will always offer reasons to stop. Responsibilities, fear, comfort, but it also offers signs, quiet ones, personal ones, and the difference between those who feel alive and those who feel stuck is not talent or luck. It's listening. Listening when the heart speaks softly. Listening when the path feels uncertain. Listening even when the world tells you to be practical. By the end of the journey, Santiago learns that the treasure was never meant to make him rich. It was meant to make him aware of his courage, aware of his capacity to learn, aware of his ability to trust himself. And that awareness stays long after the story ends. This is why The Alchemist doesn't feel like a book you finish. It feels like a conversation that continues. It waits for you at different stages of your life. And each time you return, it asks a slightly different question. What are you ready to listen to now? If this story felt calm, familiar, or quietly powerful, it's because it touched something real. And if you enjoy stories that don't rush answers, stories that sit with you and grow over time, you'll always find them here. This is English Bookshelf. You can share your thoughts below. Subscribe to walk through more meaningful stories together. And return whenever you need a reminder that your journey is still unfolding.